SABC News reporter Tebogo Phakedi is in Potchefstroom this morning, monitoring results from 3 closely contested wards in the JB Marks Municipality. The Rustenburg Local Municipality is also on edge. The ANC and the EFF are already betting on coalitions with other parties to take control of the Platinum City. Let's cross live now to Tebogo. Tebogo, quite sleepless it's 2 days for you, I imagine. What's the latest?
Most definitely, Desiree, good morning to you and the viewers. Quite interesting, really. The turnout, one can say, whether it was expected, we do not know. We'll hear from analysts, but we are still in Ward 5 in Potchefstroom, that is under the JB Marks Local Municipality. That is the ward we mentioned there that it was highly contested. And I can just make a disclaimer there that those results are preliminary results, and of course, they will be confirmed by IEC Chief Electoral Officer later in the day. But this is the ward that is highly contested. You would know that it was EFF, it was DA, it was ANC and Freedom Front Plus. The ward was led by the DA prior to the results, and I can just also mention there that the 2 wards that were with the ANC prior to these by-elections were retained by the ANC, as we stated on the package there. And of course, when we go to Bujanala, you also see the ANC retaining the 2 seats and surprisingly winning another seat that has been led by the DA for so many years. But I can just emphasize that this ward, which was won by the Freedom Front Plus, was led by the DA. Such a big loss for the Democratic Alliance. But I will just talk to the Democratic Alliance member of the legislature, that is Chris Hatting, just to talk to us about this loss. This ward was led by the DA, and thank you very much for talking to us. And we hear again, of course, they will be confirmed later in the day that you also lost in Madibeng. Tell us about this. We saw on Monday the DA was quite optimistic. We saw even the federal chairperson, Helen Zille, coming to Potchefstroom and, of course, confident that you will win. What is it that is going through the DA's head at this moment?
Well, obviously, any loss is very disappointing. That's also very disappointing. But there's also some some positiveness that we can read in this result, and that the bleeding of votes to the Freedom Front Plus, as was seen in the three previous by-elections, has stopped. That tide has stopped, and there's a new vibe, a new attitude amongst the voters. The aggression of Schweizer-Reneke and even Stilfontein is gone. And I think there's a realization that is now setting in from discussions we had with voters yesterday, that the future of race-based, fear-mongering, polarizing parties, as we've also seen in other by-elections in Ikageng and Potchefstroom, has perhaps become saturated. And there's a new realization growing that the future of South Africa lies in value-based political parties versus race-based political parties. And we are certainly, that was a message Helen came to Potch with, building a new strong value-based party, non-racial, diverse, as the DA being the only diverse party in South Africa. And that's a positiveness that I could have seen and could have read from yesterday's result. The bleeding has stopped, and there's a new dawn rising, and I'm positive. I was very despondent, but now I'm positive. Okay,
this really, when you look at South African politics, it is normally the leading party and oppositions. One can say it's quite interesting to see. Well, DA would say we want to make sure we retain some of the ANC, we take some of the ANC seats, but it's no longer just about the leading party and oppositions. There are also oppositions that are gunning for each other's seats. Yeah. What does that say? I assume that all this time it has been, or most of the time, ANC and oppositions. But at this point, you see even oppositions gaining momentum and taking other seats.
Well, certainly, we opposition parties are trying to get votes from the biggest opposition party. We see that. But if you have to answer the question, what's the best interest of South Africa? A weak DA or a strong DA? even for the opposition parties who only build their hope ever to be in government, to be in coalition with the DA. A strong DA is good for South Africa, it's good for accountability, it's even good for the smaller marginal parties, but who continues to actually be only anti-DA parties. The future lies with a strong, value-based, moderate political party in South Africa. The polarizing, fear-mongering parties, people are starting to see through them.
Let's talk about the groundwork. We know next year will be local government elections, and of course this has set the tone for next year. Even in 2019 by-elections, we saw DA losing to Freedom Front Plus. But then if we are going to local government elections, the DA has to go back and look at what went wrong. What do you think is going to happen? Are you even prepared perhaps to go back to the ground and say, look, next year we are going to local government elections, this has to be our stance?
Well, I think it's well known that the DA went back to the drawing board some time ago. The DA has got a new, revitalized, strong leadership. We have done our homework, we know where to go to, and we are building that new party that should be the core of any coalition government in the future, which is the immediate target.
Thank you very much, sir. That was Chris Hatting, who is the member of the DA in the legislature. The DA lost this ward to the Freedom Front Plus, something that we saw happening in 2019 with another ward. The DA again is still losing this ward. We are going to talk to a political analyst, that is Professor Andre Duvenach, who will of course analyze what does this mean. Prof, we saw the ANC prior coming to the by-elections leading the council with 34 seats and opposition having 33 seats. We were quite looking at the fact that the ANC seat might be at stake, looking at the fact that it is just one seat, and of course there were 3 wards that were being contested. But we see the ANC retaining the seats, we see the ANC retaining the other 2 seats in Madibeng, and of course taking a seat that was led by the DA for a very long time. What does this say, looking at the fact that service delivery continues to be an issue here?
Tebogo, a number of impressions. The first one was the low voter turnaround. And my take on it is that people are very concerned about politics. They are not interested and they are not seeing solutions within the current parties and within the alternatives. We have seen that with a low voter turnout. Interesting, the ANC, despite the challenges of the mayor and the municipal manager, the state of affairs in JB Marks still keeping their 2 seats. The reason is the historical position of the ANC, but there's also an area of concern because this is the same party that cannot deliver services, that is taking us down as a JB Marks municipality. Therefore, I have concerns in this regard. Ward 5 is a very interesting one. We have big competition here, and again the DA has lost. And my take on the situation there is that identity politics is becoming more and more important. Chris earlier referred, and Helen Zille also referred, to the concept of shared values. But it seems as if the constituencies are polarized at the moment, and they are not that interested in the shared value concept. And if we analyze elections, and that must be an area of concern, we are seeing very strong racial tendencies in terms of the electoral behavior patterns we are picking up. So this is in a way an area of concern. I think at this point in time we need a concept of shared values, but it's quite clear to me that the Democratic Alliance in Northwest must take stock of their situation. They need to redefine their position, and I think losing another seat here in Potchefstroom, Tlokwe, JB Marks, as well as in Madibeng, must bring on a red light. And I think they need introspection in this regard, and they do not have a long time to prepare for the national local elections.
Now, when we talk of the leading party, we saw, as we were mentioned even before the by-elections, that poor service delivery continues to be an issue. You mentioned there that the arrest of the municipal manager, the mayor actually, due to allegations of misuse of money, and of course, so many accusations of corruptions within the JB Marks Local Municipality. The community is still going, not that they are supposed to look at certain things, but however, we talked to Professor Rulani Hanyani, who is the local government expert, saying there that empathy politics looks like it is playing a role here, where you see voters voting for empathy, saying we've been with the ANC for so many years, there's no way that we can vote anyone. Is this the case here?
Yes, I think that is at least a huge element of the argument on table, and that is that we have conservative historical patterns of voting. If you first choose your party, you are keeping with your party. But it's quite clear that the ANC's political alternative is not working. And we are seeing this throughout the province at this point in time. If JB Marks is seen as the best managed municipality in Northwest, then we can think what is the situation in other areas. But this is bringing me to another problem. Is democratic processes bringing us closer to solutions? We have seen a lot of Article 139 interventions in local government, and it's not working. About all the municipalities in the country is currently 80 to 90% are dysfunctional, and about the majority in this province as well. And we need to look for other answers. And it seems to me as if the party political processes are not working. And it also has to do with the constituency that is very conservative, still voting for a party despite corruption, despite mismanagement, despite misconduct. And I seem in a way the constituency need to re-look the situation in general.
I want us to talk about the EFF, but before we get there, let's talk about the Freedom Front Plus. We saw the Freedom Front Plus gaining award, taking it from the DA in 2019. The same happened this year. Really growing in council. What can you say about that?
Well, I think in 2019, one of the core characteristics of the outcome of that election was identity politics. And there's an element of polarization going on. And the middle ground is falling apart. And if I'm talking middle ground, I'm talking Democratic Alliance, I'm talking the more conservative group within the ANC. And people are voting for the polls to the benefit of parties like the EFF and, in a way, the Freedom Front Plus. And clearly, the Freedom Front Plus benefit from a number of reasons here. The first reason, they had a strong organization going. Their leader is coming from Stilfontein here, etc. That's the one thing. The other thing, we had a number of things playing out in recent times. We had farm murders, we had the Senekal incident, we had Brackenfell, and this is appealing to the white constituency to act more conservative because they are very concerned about the situation. And in this context, the Freedom Front Plus is benefiting and the DA is losing out. We know that the new leadership of the DA is repositioned themselves more conservative with Steenhuisen and, in a way, Helen Zille, but it seems as if that message has not yet reached the constituency in a way.
But then that gives sentiments that reactional politics, perhaps, if we're going to talk about the issues of farm matters, for example, saying people are looking at that, we're going to the Western Cape, and what does that say? You're looking at the fact that some political parties like EFF will be the one also pushing, this is what we want. We do not want, maybe you'd see allegations of racism at that school and so forth. Reactional politics are playing games here, right?
Well, yes, but reactional and conservative politics is a worldwide tendency, and in a way it's a reaction on change. But you are quite right. Reactional politics is picking up, and you can see it in a number of tendencies. Look at what is going on with a group like the Suidlanders. Look at the dynamics in terms of Cape Exit, the Kaapse Partij and others. They are mushrooming in a number of areas, and that is a reaction on current conditions in South Africa. Lack of safety and security, low levels of economic development, the type of role parties like the EFF is playing at the moment, and people are reacting towards this. And I must tell you, I'm very concerned about the current situation in South African politics. We are facing major challenges. There's currently huge conflict within the ANC elite about the Ace Magashule and other situation, the RET group. We have major financial and economic challenges also playing out on a local government level, and then we have the social conflict that is picking up, which is in many ways racially defined. And I agree with Chris that in a way we need to find a model within the framework of shared values, but we need the constituency to buy into it.
Really, those dynamics proving that next year's elections will be a big fish to fry. But let's talk about the EFF. We saw in January, just briefly, the EFF really not doing as it has anticipated in the Mamusa by-elections. Of course, that was after the municipality was dissolved. And then we come to these by-elections. Of course, the EFF anticipated to win any of the wards. That did not happen. What can you say about this? But also, we have to look at the fact that the EFF is younger than all these parties.
Well, I think a number of reasons. The EFF needs publicity in terms of controversy in order to market themselves. And I think there was no big incidents in many of the areas involved in the by-elections. It was more on a national level. It was a Clicks thing, Brackenfell, Senekal, and so on. But on the local level, at the grassroots level, they are finding it more difficult to get an impact. It's very difficult for a party to get a support base above 10%. Then you need strong structures, you need organization, you need to mobilize your support base. And it seems as if they are finding it difficult to get to that level. We must also know at the moment there's a lot of pressure on their leadership in terms of the investigations with regard to the VBS Bank incident, and people are talking about warrants of arrest. So there are challenges. I think Malema himself has about 10 plus court cases going against him. So the EFF have their own challenges in a number of ways. But I think in terms of polarization, they can benefit, they can follow a strategy, and they can take away support from the ANC in the 2021 elections. And my expectation is in the 2021 elections we are still going to see polarization, and it's going to be very difficult for the middle ground to consolidate politically.
Thank you very much, Prof. That was Professor Andre Duvenar, who is a political analyst, breaking down really the results, the preliminary results of the JB Marks Local Municipality, and of course some of the municipalities in Bojanala. You would know that the Freedom Fund Plus has won the ward that was with the DA prior to this by-elections. We saw the ANC retaining the seats, really sticking to that 34 seats, 33 seats council. And of course we see in Madibeng also the ANC retaining 2 wards and big enough winning the ward that was with the DA for a very long time. And of course this begs a question as to what is going to happen next year. And of course there's still a lot that has to be done in terms of service delivery. This doesn't change the fact that the JB Marks Local Municipality, when you go to the townships, you would find sewage spillages, you would find refuse not being collected, there's no water and so forth. So this begs to say the ANC has to go back as it has won, but of course we'll get the confirmation of these results this afternoon from the IEC. But at this point, there's back to you in studio.
Absolutely, you're correct there, and we remind our viewers to be watching around noon as the IEC will be announcing the official results. You're watching The Agenda. Let's take a break for now.